We are live in
Love Facebook.
where a number of people
The opportunity to share.
she's one of our own. It has been
They aren't like
parts to your story that's awesome. You found healing. You found,
Until I got sober.
can't wait for her to share that. I hate to know the different aspects of your story and what awesome.
right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Recovery Stories. My name is Patrick. I'm your host for this hour. So glad that each and every one of you are here. I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker today, Ben, because he's got an amazing story of recovery that he's going to share with you today. But also, he's a very special person that I get to see and work alongside with often at Promises Behavioral Health. Helping people to access treatment and recovery. So, Ben, thank you so much for giving your time today and getting vulnerable to tell your story on such a public forum and platform. We are so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I don't want to take up any more time me talking. So let's, I'm going to turn the floor over and have you share with us your journey. So wherever you want to start off.
Okay, sure. So I guess, like as far as upbringing, it was it was a relatively normal upbringing. Nothing crazy. To me, it felt pretty normal. I was an only child for, almost 10 years. And then we adopted my sister from China. So that changed the dynamic a lot. But I do know that like I always felt kind of out of place and just kind of weird as a kid.
Yeah.
In social situations and just like my thought processes and things like that. I knew there was something a little different. And then my as far as my mom does have a history of my family has a history of mental health issues, definitely. My grandmother on my dad's side was bipolar, and my mom, started probably about when I was 9, started taking a lot of different medications for mental health, and does to this day. And she's just kind of all over the place with those medications. I'm not sure that she's quite figured out a regimen yet. So, but as far as so the mental health history is definitely there, but as far as like substance abuse history in my family, I really didn't have a lot of exposure to alcoholism, really. It was never really something that that at least that I knew of that was my family had a history of. My dad would maybe have a beer every like once a month. And my mom occasionally, nothing crazy. So I never really was exposed to that, but I think my parents were a little more it was a little more the opposite for me. I was underexposed. And so, just substances in general, drugs and alcohol were, I remember being, 12 and 13 and like already having an obsessive mindset about that kind of thing. Having never tried something, but just I like could feel the allure of drugs and alcohol, and like the mystery was just so profound to me and something I wanted to explore for myself. Didn't really know why at the time. just a feeling I had. So, um, and I remember, I was my aunt, my aunt Kathy. She was probably the person I was closest to in my family. Um, she's actually my great aunt, but she was just some old hippie, and smoked these like ultra slim like menthol cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I remember being a kid and like, like being all like obsessed with the smoke and wanting to play with it. And um so I'm like 14 or 15 at a Christmas gathering, and of course I steal one of those, slims. Um and smoke it. And I remember, I mean, I think that's kind of when it definitely began, that even that minor head change from a cigarette, definitely set things off. I was like, oh, so this is why, this is what they talk about. It was definitely like a sense of freedom, that I hadn't felt before. My skin had always been too tight. I always kind of felt out of place, socially, and just kind of class clown, to make up for that kind of thing. But so it wasn't off to the races really. I just kind of started exploring from there when I had that cigarette. Um, Throughout high school, drugs and alcohol really weren't a huge thing, honestly. I thrived on community and like connection and involvement. That's what my soul needed. So I was very, very involved. Choir, drama club, sports. I mean, you name it. I'd go to school at 7 a.m. and come home at like 9 p.m. And that's what I loved it.
So you had a strong sense of connection with others during that time.
Absolutely, yeah. I had outlets where I was able to express myself. I think, especially artistically, that's like where I found my niche in high school was through those kind of things with choir and drama club and acting and that kind of thing. So I definitely like thrived on the structure and the involvement. So and then, like I said, it wasn't kind of off to the races. I wasn't like I had my high school years were great. I was straight A's. Like I said, very involved. Nothing really affected me. I like smoked cannabis a few times, in high school. Definitely got more frequent my senior year. It like started becoming more of a regular thing. And I mean, I remember again the obsessive quality. I just absolutely loved the way that made me feel. And at that point, I was smoking regularly by senior year and wasn't facing any kind of consequences. And it was kind of just like, haha, mom and dad, like, look at me, you, I can do this and still be successful. So then, the high school I went to was a pretty well-oiled machine, very money driven, very, they were very adamant about test scores and sending people to college. And, I fell into that, and I don't think I was quite ready for college at that point, but, straight away I went to, right down the road to the University of Cincinnati, and just kind of on a whim chose to pursue a nursing degree. Um, the first day of school, just I took an inch, or I was given an inch and took a mile. Like that little bit of freedom. I
Yeah.
mean, immediately I was off to the races. Um, I had no structure. I had never been responsible for anything really in my life. Living on my own, and I took it way too far immediately. Um, I remember before school even started, um, like the semester even started, there was like a move-in day, where families were bringing students to move them in before classes started.
Mm-hmm.
I had already moved in, and me and a buddy both ate a bunch of mushrooms and like walked around campus, freaking out the parents probably. So I mean, like I said, the classes hadn't even started, and I was like, already pulling things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all, it really was like fun. I was not facing any kind of consequences yet again.
Had your experimenting with at the time your usage of drugs and alcohol had it? I hear you say you weren't experiencing any of the consequences necessarily, but was it immediately affecting had you seen it start to affect your grades or ability to make it to class, or affecting your life, or was that
Definitely.
yet to be?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, and I just didn't realize it at the time. But immediately, like that change of environment and the lack of structure and getting more heavily involved in substance use,
Mm-hmm.
I would oversleep, and just kind of, brush it off, and just not go to any classes that day. I mean, it was a rough start, pretty right off the bat, pretty early. Um, I didn't really give it any thought. I tried to use the geographic cure. I told my parents, I said, I don't like this. I don't think I want to do nursing. I want to do music. And my mom had gone to Moorhead State in Kentucky, a tiny little podunk school, but with a great music program. And so they, the next semester in January, they shipped me off to Moorhead. And I started pursuing a music degree there. So right before I went to Moorhead, actually, because I had withdrawn from UC. A buddy of mine from high school asked. So I wasn't in school for like a few months, just kind of
Sure.
at home. And a buddy of mine said, hey, let's hang out. Have you ever done? You want to go get an Opana with me? And I was like, I don't really know what that is, but I'm down for whatever.
Right.
And obviously at the time I didn't know it, but it's like one of the strongest pain medications there is out there. A lot of people will get a wisdom tooth taken out and start with Vicodin and move their way up, or whatever. I feel like that's a trend. But I dove straight into Opanas, like I said, with my buddy that day. And that was, you hear it all the time, but that was like, wow, this is what I've been looking for. Like, I thought the cannabis was doing it. I thought the psychedelics were doing it. I thought alcohol was doing it. But this is really what I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Because it finally slowed my brain down enough to where I didn't feel like a crazy person, and I could just kind of crawl into my own little um, the womb of my own consciousness and just kind of be comfortable.
Yeah.
And so then I went to Moorhead, yeah, and I had only done that a couple times. Again, no like severe consequences. I mean, my life was not going so great in terms of like school, but like other than that, um, I felt like um, to me at the time, from my perspective, I didn't think drugs and alcohol were really affecting my life. They absolutely were, looking back, but so I went to Moorhead. Again, the first few weeks, I was very excited to be in that environment and be pursuing music. Doing something that I had loved in high school. And I mean, right off the bat too, it's like all my professors were, commenting on my potential, and I knew it was something I could be good at. But again, drugs kind of took over, before I could apply myself. I remember the first day I was sitting in my room and in a little dorm room, and just like obsessing about like how am I gonna find like how am I gonna get high? Like I don't know anybody here. Um, and I like just walked around and like somehow
Found somebody that looked like they
yeah
yeah.
and got high the first day at school, and I was so proud of myself. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'm slick for being able to pull that off on day one. But I mean, I just could not sit still that first day until I, knew that I had a plan. Like, how am I going to get high every day? So, and the first few weeks were great. Like my professors were telling me, commenting on my advanced, music theory knowledge and sight reading skills, and things like that. I was a voice major, like music education, teaching choir. But eventually I found the local trap house, and it was I just everything downward spiral from there.
Yeah.
And I remember just like the disappointment and like judgment and like almost hatred like from my peers. I'm sure like
Did you start to get known as or treated like that guy?
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Again though, just kind of like the consequences that I was facing, like grades drop, grades slipping, and things like that. Almost wasn't even fully aware of people's reactions. How I was already becoming perceived as that guy. Almost, almost blind to it. I could see it in my peripherals, but I think I kind of chose to ignore it.
Sure. Well, addiction also has a tendency to do that for us, like keeps us in a state of denial that perpetuates survival. So
yeah. 100%. And that was just the beginning of that denial within me.
Yeah.
So, and I remember taking tests, and like going to music theory, like absolutely stoned, and doing well on the test, and like the the prissy, like do good, perfect girl in my class, that studied 4 hours a day, would get like a 70 or something on the test and be like pissed at me because I came in, just
Yeah.
barely made it. And I just like chose to, I had those advantages and like was good at music, and at the time was choosing to just kind of throw it away. So, throughout, I was at Moorhead for about 2.5 years. And I mean, the whole time, um, selling drugs, as a means to support my own habit. I mean, right. I mean, I had been doing that since like senior year. That's kind of always been a thing. Um, and then doing, just hanging out with other, um, just like burnout music majors, basically. Just doing a bunch of mushrooms and smoking weed all the time and not going to class, and listening to John Coltrane and thinking we were just just thinking we were the bee's knees, top of our class. And I remember too, though, there, the majority of people in that little group, of us, quote, burnout music majors, most of them were like on it, like, would make all their classes and do well in all their recitals and get good grades. And I just was kind of like, how do you pull that off, but they, I think they were just regular non-alcoholics and could do it successfully. And I just really never understood that. So now about halfway through going to Moorhead, I think this was definitely traumatic for me. I think this is when things kind of started going off the rails. There was a teacher at Moorhead, like an assistant director. She taught at the local high school as well as a choir teacher. And I think she was probably about 30 something, early 30s, and I was like 19. And she said, "Oh, you're great at sight reading, and you got a great voice. Will you help me with the church choir in town? Will you help direct the church choir?" I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I went to one rehearsal, and I like could smell alcohol on her breath, and I was like, "Oh, nice. This is this girl will be fun." She's like me, and I remember. I mean, that night we like hung out and we're together, and I felt like the king of the world. Oh, look at me, dating the teacher, and she bought a cabin property out in the sticks by Moorhead. Asked me to move in and be her quote little farmer, and grow weed out at the cabin.
Wow.
And I said, absolutely. Why wouldn't I? So I moved in with this. Yeah, she was like 30-something-year-old teacher at the time. Moved in with her, and that's when things definitely began to change. I was cultivating marijuana. In like we had like a big detached garage. I had like a whole setup. She was definitely there was some mental health going on. I would she'd give me her amphetamines that she took for ADHD. I'd be snorting those daily. Um, I'd be, smoking all day, not lifting a finger around the house. I wanted somebody to take care of me, basically.
Yeah.
And that's what I had. That's all I did at the cabin was get high, snort Ritalin, snort, whatever, and take copious amounts of LSD and mushrooms and just hang out in the woods. So definitely was out of touch with reality, distanced both physically, from the rest of my peers. I mean, because it was 30 minutes from campus.
So let me ask you something here, just if you don't mind me interjecting.
Sure.
So you're describing something that sounds like, because I also, I went to Belmont University, where I was surrounded by a lot of music students, not all of them, but many, in any music school, in college in general, but in any music school especially, you get a lot of free-spirited, creative people that tend to appreciate using, substances and things like that to enhance their creativity or different things, like, you name it. But the person you're describing, such as yourself at this time, there's you just described a whole faction of people, right? That in that age range, you were living like the dream life that anybody at that stage of development and of life kind of would dream of, being able to be in a place where you're provided what you need, you're taken care of, you have the substances you want, literally not virtually, you get to complete responsibilities that you choose to complete, not that you have to complete. Right. And so I'm just curious if you could kind of talk about for a second what, I'm always interested in what people's state of, as you go through your addiction cycles, what was your state of awareness at this point? Were you like, I have arrived, I have found, broken the key to, or, found the key, cracked the code to success and happiness? Or was there something, a voice on the inside telling you, hey, what's going on here? I don't know what I'm doing. Something might be wrong, but I'm not going to fix it today. What was that? What was that other side of the narrative taking place in your head and your heart?
Okay. Yeah. So for me internally at that point, I think it was both. I think I cracked the code, I've arrived, here I am, definitely outweighed the voice in the back of my head. But the voice was definitely there. And it would poke and prod here and there. This is kind of weird. Why are you living with a 30-year-old? Getting high all day, every day. What's going on here?
Yeah.
But, definitely the other side won out. Me thinking that I had, had it made at the time. So I think awareness was creeping in, but did not have a chance at that point. The denial aspect of my addiction was definitely a lot stronger than my awareness at that time. Definitely. So, I'm out at this cabin with this teacher doing my thing. We had a landlord that lived in New Zealand. And she would come maybe once every 3 or 4 months, and stop in. And so one morning I was doing some trimming on the plants in the garage. And then I was like, all right, I'm heading out. Can you finish this last plant and lock the door behind you. And so I left, and I get a call a couple hours later saying it's her, freaking out. The landlord saw the plants, called the cops. Yeah, and it's this big thing. And so I go home, and the place has been like absolutely ransacked by the local police. Just everything like up and turned over, every drawer like yanked out of its place, papers, miscellaneous things all over the floor. I looked like a SWAT team had like just like gone through the place and wrecked it. And I just retired. I went to the bed, and like sat there for probably like 12 hours. Just like, I just could not, my brain couldn't process what had happened really yet at that point. And fast forward, we go to court. Again, it's a very small town, very small. Everybody knows the high school choir teacher. So I remember, like, not even 2 days later, her face is on the front page of the paper. Local teacher cultivating marijuana, yada yada. I'm not even really involved in the story. And so we go to court. I try to tell them. I think I made kind of an attempt to do the right thing. I tried to tell them that they were my plants. And they just brushed it off, really. They said, well, your name's not on the lease, so it doesn't matter. And then we just kind of, me and her, we stayed together and just decided to kind of start over. We started renting this like god awful trailer, a little bit outside of town, and just trying to pick up the pieces and start over. It got knocked down to possession somehow. So she, paid a fine, and we moved to this trailer. And we still were struggling with rent, even though the trailer was like, it was probably like $350 a month or something. And we asked a girl that I had known kind of from school to be our roommate. And so she moved into, and because the teacher and I, it was more of a relationship based on substances, and substances and sex. It wasn't really, there was no really real substance to that relationship. I was
substances. Yeah.
And so, I started, me and this girl started, this roommate, we started, messing around a little bit too. It was, at some point it was like all three of us. So that was weird and traumatic. I thought I was the king of the world at the time, but so we're all just kind of living as this couple of three. And at some point we all came to the decision, like, let's get out of Dodge. Moorhead is not for us, really. Too much has happened. And like on a whim, all three of us, I said, let's go to Cincinnati. That's where I'm from. It's a sweet city. It's cool up there. Let's all go up there. So we move up, and I call Andrew, the buddy that I had done Opanas with. and all three of us start going, and it becomes more and more and more regular. Um, and within a month, we're going every day. All the money that I used from like selling weed, that I would normally buy more weed with, all of it was spent on Apanas. And so, eventually we all kind of got in a fight. And me and the girl, the roommate, not the teacher, we like moved out and like moved in with my parents, and because they were about 30 minutes up the road, and we lived with them and leached off of them, and we're using opiates daily at that point. And just sat around, and we were just basically lifeless, forms on the couch, uh, just constantly high, and good for nothing, dead weight. Um, and we both went to, eventually I gave up. The lady I was getting the Opanas from, she got really sick. And so we switched to doing heroin, and did that for another year or so. And I just eventually I gave up. I told my parents finally what was going on. They definitely had a suspicion. At that point I was like pawning things at the house and asking for money all the time, and they knew something was up. So um, eventually, like I said, I just told them what was going on. Terrified of the backlash, but I had to tell someone. And my poor parents, they didn't know anything about addiction.
Yeah.
Why would they? They had never really been exposed to anything like that. Um, and so I asked them to take me to a Suboxone clinic, to get off of the heroin, and maybe get a little time under my belt and start school again. And of course, my first prescription, I sold all 30 and started doing heroin again. Me and the girl, still at my parents' house. So that didn't work. It just was, obviously. Um, and then I remember on my birthday, we were out at a Mexican restaurant, um, and I was like nodding off at the table, and my parents said, you guys are going to treatment. Um, and really, I didn't put up any kind of a fight at that point. I was fine with it. I think, um, in my mind, I saw it as like an opportunity to kind of reset, and like it was
Yeah.
it was a cop out. I could safely, go and not have like withdrawals, and um, kind of just get away for a month.
Mhm.
Um, and it went pretty well. Um, I went to some place in Florida for treatment, like everybody else,
Yeah.
and was there, 30 days, did the thing, went to sober living in Florida, and again, I felt very out of place. I just, I was not ready to be sober. I had nothing in common with like that Florida lifestyle. I just felt very out of place. I called my parents and said, I'm good. You know, I'm all better. I'm coming home.
Yeah.
And them not knowing anything about addiction said, absolutely, come on home. We're happy to have you. Glad you're better. Um, and a week after being home, I'm using again. and just like that. It caught me off guard, even though in the back of my mind, I knew that was the plan. But it definitely caught me off guard, regardless. Um, so I used again for, this time I was by myself. My girlfriend at the time had went to another treatment center and had stayed there. And that was just kind of it. Um, and so I moved back, and again, I got high at my parents' house for another 6 months. Um, just trying to again climb back into that womb and be comfortable and not have any responsibilities. And so I was sent, after much delay on my part, I was sent once again to treatment, same place down in Florida. And that time, I said, I don't like Florida really. I don't like the sober living here. I was about to finish treatment for the second time. Called my mom, said, I'd like to come home. She said, absolutely not. Choose a place and I will send you there. And I just kind of on a whim said Nashville. I don't really know why. It wasn't. I knew that like my love of music maybe had some influence on that decision. But I wasn't like, yeah, I'm gonna go and go to all the honky tonks and be the next big star. That wasn't the motivation. It was just kind of again looking for a geographic cure a little bit. I think that was part of it too. And just kind of threw that out there. And she found a sober living for me, and I went home, and they drove me down the next day. And immediately, I felt a little bit of that connection and community that I felt in high school. Just a hint, but it was there. And I knew that, although it was a big move and definitely scary, that it was probably the right choice, because of that feeling of that sense of community that I was feeling already, right off the bat. So, I was in sober living for a good amount of time, probably about 6 months, and then moved to a 3/4 house, like an Oxford house with a little more freedom. Was doing well, just kind of, trying to ease my way back in to real life, valeting cars, going to meetings, pretty simple stuff.
Doing the simple, yeah.
Yeah. And, on a whim, this was, I guess, 2017, maybe. 2017, just kind of on a whim, my roommates and I were like, let's go over to Bonnaroo for a couple days, get us some wristbands and catch some of the evening shows and then just come home. And so we went. The first day was great. We drove back home. I was, I felt good. I felt proud of myself, because that can be a tough environment to be in early recovery. And we went back the second night, and I don't know, something just inside said you could totally get away with eating some acid, and nobody will find out. And so that's what I did. I snuck off and ate some and came back to my my sober living roommates, and took off. And I had a great time. I don't regret it really. It was part of my journey. I thought I like got away with it. I was like, nobody knows. Um, and so I get back to the sober living. Still have not come down. I'm just sitting in my room, and then it hits me. Like I'm sitting in my room at a halfway house. Tripping very hard. This is not okay.
Yeah.
Little bit of guilt set in at that
Sure.
point.
Yep.
And so, and then a week goes by, and I'm like, I pulled it off, no big deal. And then I'm at work one day, and this guy, I can like smell weed on him, and I ask him if he wants to smoke after work. So I smoke for a week, probably every day. And then one day after work, the it wasn't even me that did it. It was my addiction. I mean, it was like completely a separate entity.
Mm.
After work, I like took my tips. I got in my car and like started to drive up to Cincinnati. And like the Ben part of me was like, oh yeah, you're just going to say what's up to your parents, surprise them, give them a little treat. Their perfect son Ben is coming to say hello. But that was just me kind of again trying to convince me that I was not going up to call my old dealer and get some heroin. And that was the longest drive of my life. It's about 4 hours, and it's usually flies by, but the anticipation was like nothing I've ever felt before. I at that halfway up, I knew the true reason why I was going up. Called the guy, pulled off downtown, and headed back over into Kentucky on my way back to Nashville. And not 10 miles into Kentucky, I'm like nodding off and swerving, and I pull off the road and just kind of pass out on the side of the highway. And I wake up, and an officer's knocking on the window. And I said, "Oh, I'm tired." I was completely out of it. I really hardly remember the arrest. But I remember showing the officer my 6-month AA coin. He was like, what are you high on?" And I was like, I showed him my coin with my eyes closed. I have 6 months sober. I mean, that's like the level of denial,
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I'm in a cell. They roll in this little. A few days later, they roll in this little computer thing with like a monitor on it, and it's my poor mom, on the screen crying, asking what happened, and me not having an answer. I said, I don't know. I wish I did. If I did, I wouldn't have done it. I don't know what happened. And I stayed for about another week, and then I'm in. They take us into the courtroom, and I ask, can I go to treatment and leave jail, please? And they allow it. And I come back to Nashville to a treatment center that I had known pretty well, just from going out there a few times during my short stint of sobriety here. I'm there a couple weeks. I think I'm good, but my counselor and my parents both said, no, you're not, and send me to extended care, aftercare, more treatment.
Sure.
Which I was upset with, big time. I said, I just want to go to sober living, get on with this. I'm done. I promise. But thank goodness that they made me, seek more treatment.
Yeah.
I was able to work on some trauma at this place. Um, I was able to get a little bit more time in a structured environment, like at a facility. Um, Very busy in groups, 8 hours a day. And um, so I finally got, some extended treatment, and worked on finally the mental health portion of things. Um, so if I get out, um, I meet my cousin's roommate in Florida, um, and we kind of hit it off a little bit. Um, and then because I was just down there like after treatment to visit. Um, so then I come back up. I start a job. I'm like a host at some Thai restaurant. Just trying to start over and do my thing again. And my cousin's roommate calls me and says, "Hey, I'm pregnant. Um, what do you want to do about this?" Um, and I just remember almost, I was like pretty angry with my understanding of God at that point. I
Mm.
was like, I just got out of treatment. Like, what do you
Yeah.
expect me to do with this? Um, and I just put my head down. I worked as hard as I could at this Thai restaurant. She had the baby in Denver. Um, and I flew out there and I saw my daughter for about a week, when she was first born, and then I I wanted to just stay there, but I knew that like long term it wasn't the best decision,
Yeah.
because I was a fellowship was growing around me, and I was settling into um, a good pace of recovery
Yeah.
in
You were
Nashville.
finding that connection, the healthy version of that connection that you once felt. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And I it probably was not me that made the decision. It was probably my higher power that did for me. But something told me, I know as bad as you want to stay in Denver right now and be with, this new family of yours, Nashville is where you need to be right now.
Mhm.
And so, I flew back, um, and, I got out of the halfway house, moved up a little bit in the world, moved into a buddy's old place in a house, um, but didn't take it, I did not take it far. In the past, like when getting out of a halfway house, it's like, oh, no curfew, no, it was just like that first time going to college. It's just like take it too far. And, um, but this time I took over his spot in the house that he was in, kept working, got promoted to, you know, manager at this Thai restaurant. And I just was like, wow, I'm doing big things here. And finally, in March of um, 2019, my daughter was, I had gone out a couple times and visited. My daughter was like a little over 6 months old at the time. And she and her mom decided to move to Nashville, and we could try the family thing. I thought I might be ready for that, and so we lived in this house with a roommate and our daughter, and definitely struggled. with me working at a restaurant and, not making great money, and just being with a roommate. I mean, it was difficult, but it was absolutely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
We started to become a family, right off the bat, like a cohesive unit, and it worked. And I'm again, God, my God, my higher power, shows up at the strangest times. I was My sister had come to visit, and I was in Bellevue at the time, and I was at the Green Hills Mall with my sister. Um, and to put that in perspective, I mean, it's like kind of out of the way. Um, it's like a decent piece to get to Green Hills. Um, and I don't even really go to the mall ever. It was at my sister's request. So, not a place I would normally be whatsoever. And I ran into a friend of mine that I had known from meetings. And she was out, I think she was in Kingston Springs at the time, but was there for some appointment. So both of us it was like a strange place for both of us to be. Not a common place for us to see each other. And I ran into her, and we're talking a little bit, and she's asking how things are, and I'm like, everything's great. I'm living with my girlfriend and my daughter. Things are great. I was like, really, the only thing is I hate my job. It's debilitating. It's draining. But everything else is great. And she said, "Oh, you should apply. At where I work doing admissions. I think you'd be good at it. Having experience with recovery." And I apply, and I get hired at Promises. Nothing I thought that would ever be possible. I mean, I never could perceive any kind of success for myself. It just seemed otherworldly, just based on my experience.
Yeah.
Like anything that was gratifying, like career wise, where I like had a passion about what I was doing, did not seem in the realm of possibility. I just was used to, work sucking and
Yeah.
just being a thing to grind out and to support those around you. Monotonous, just busy work is what I was used to. And again, that that by chance meeting with this friend of mine, to where she could mention, this job as an admissions specialist. Again, we neither of us are in that area often. It was weird that we ran into each other. It was definitely just kind of put in my lap by, the universe said, "Here you go.
Yeah.
This is what you're supposed to do next."
Absolutely. Well, I think about, as you say this, in 12 steps, we talk about the promises and the miracles that take place. And I think it's so cool because for so long in early recovery, it can feel like, only the boring promises are, I say the boring, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean.
I do.
I'll find serenity and I'll know peace. Yeah, whatever. I have that, but I feel like I have nothing else. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I have serenity and peace, but and what's funny is it's like, we don't have the everything else until we're ready to have the everything else, right? It tends to be one of those things, the cards fall into line when our higher power or when we are at a place where we can handle it, right? And the more complexity. And I just kind of wanted to wrap a couple things up because I know we're getting close on time here. In that, it's been really great to watch you grow as a person in recovery, helping others at Promises every day since the time that you started there and whatnot. You are truly one of the great ones that we are consider so valuable. Just to get to watch the miracle of recovery continue to grow in each of us is a huge blessing. One thing I wanted to ask you is, looking back at the, we could, put a label on all kinds of, the other people that may identify as, oh, I might be that guy we were talking about back in college, I might be that guy that scored a situation and I'm living with somebody taking care of me, and have all my needs met. Whatever the case may be, what would you say to that person that might be in the same spot you were at any development of your addiction, to encourage them to anything? If you were talking to yourself at that point, what would you say right now?
That's a tough question. There's a lot of things I would say to myself at that point in my life.
If you could narrow it down to, kind of a snippet of one thing, what would that be?
Yeah. I think that if I had to choose a snippet just to say to myself at that time, would, simply be, to tell myself to surrender a little bit, because I just was always just fighting against the grain of everything coming at me, and just wearing myself out, swimming against the current. I think, however, though, I know I wouldn't have listened to myself, and that time took its course the way it was supposed to, and the experiences were meant to be. Ideally, ideally, I would have gone back to 12-year-old Ben and said, "Don't smoke that cig," don't ever do this, or you're going to be in a heap of trouble. But that's just not the way, it was meant to be. So
sure. Well, thank you again so much for sharing such a vulnerable side to your life and your story. Again, I just want to challenge and encourage anybody listening. If you or a loved one are struggling with addiction, mental health issues, sex addiction, eating disorders, we at Promises Behavioral Health are here and happy to help you, and have provided a number of options for reaching out to us if you want to ask questions, ask for help, start the process of surrender. You can reach out through the phone number at the bottom of your screen or the website, and you will get in touch with somebody like Ben, who is there waiting and ready to talk to you and help you. So with that, I just want to say thank you again, Ben, for your time today. So glad to have you on. Finally, I know we've been talking about doing this for a long time, so it's great to finally, have you on. And everyone, I just want to say, be kind to one another and take care of yourself.